Then there were four teams left to decide the College Basketball National Championship. Welcome to Scarbo Knows. I'm Kevin Skarbinski. It's bittersweet here on Final Four week because it is the last week of the college basketball season. We do have four teams left, two of them from the SEC, very familiar, Auburn and Florida. On the one hand, it's a good thing because they're playing each other in the national semifinals. So the SEC will have a team in the national championship game for the first time since 2014 when Kentucky lost to UConn. The SEC will have a chance to win its first national championship since 2012 when Kentucky beat Kansas with that incredible freshman class led by Anthony Davis. But it's also a little sad because if they had been in opposite sides of the bracket, Florida and Auburn obviously could have advanced to the national championship game. How cool would that have been to see the Gators and the Tigers meet for the big ring and the last net? But we shouldn't complain when we've got two SEC teams in the Final Four. And now I can't think of a better person to talk about SEC basketball, Auburn University, the University of Florida, than one of the greatest coaches in SEC history. He was a master in March. He owned the SEC tournament. He is the winningest basketball coach in the history of the University of Alabama. And just for those who might have forgotten, Alabama played basketball, and it played it very well long before Nate Oates came along to do the job that he's doing. So let's welcome in our guest for today, Wimp Sanderson.
Well,
Wimp,
I'm happy to be here.
How are you?
Wimp,
Wimp, you're invisible, or we're looking at your ceiling?
Oh, you are? I am.
Tilt your camera down, or there you go. We want to get a good look at you.
That's terrible.
How you doing?
I'm fine. Happy to be here. It's a 16-team league with 14 teams in the NCAA tournament, and the two teams that are playing each other today in the first round, Florida and Auburn. One won the round robin. Auburn won the round robin with a 15-3 record that I figured it'd be about that. I guessed that. And Auburn won that, and then Florida won the SEC tournament. So both these teams are very, very good, very talented. Auburn lost their first game at home against, guess who? Florida. So this should be a very interesting first game, and I think the fans will enjoy seeing them play again.
Wimp, does it matter? Does that first game matter? That was Auburn's the only team there that's played the other three teams that are in the Final Four. They lost to Florida at home. They lost to Duke at Duke, and they beat Houston in Houston. But that Houston game was the second game of the season. The Duke game was December 4th. The Florida game was early February. Do those games matter now? Can you learn anything as a coach? Does it help you having played that team before, whether you won or lost?
Well, I think it does in terms of film. You go back and look and see if your matchups were the way they need to be, because basketball is a matchup game. You got to match up your people against their people, and what you did offensively and defensively, was that what was good and what was bad? What did they hurt you with? What did they do against you that hurt you, your team? And so I think it does. I think you look at the film, you have your assistant coaches study the film and try to see exactly what happened in those games. You're not going to overcoach them now, because you're not going to wear them to death by putting in new stuff or changing much. I think the big thing is the way that you defend. I think the defending is going to be so critical. We've already seen that in the games leading up to this Final Four. That offense is big, and offense sells tickets, but defense is also very big.
How concerned would you be if you were Bruce Pearl right now, and we don't know exactly what the condition of Janai Broom's elbow is, his shoulder, his ankle. That was a bad fall he took. He landed so awkwardly. It wasn't a fall per se. He just went to alter a shot, and he landed very awkwardly against Michigan State in that second half. Now, he came back in and he grabbed a rebound, he hit a three, but clearly he was hurting. How concerned are you if you're Bruce Pearl about how healthy he's going to be?
Well, I am. I'm concerned about it. I think that they need to be darn sure that he's treated each and every day, that he does the things he can do right now. He's got a week off, not off, but he's got a week to rest that arm, I think, and I think he should be ready to play. But you never know. I don't know the answer to that really because I don't know how bad it was. He did come back in, and to my surprise, Kevin, he he shot a three and knocked the bottom out of it. It was one of those no, 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 yes shots that he made, and he's. I think a little bit, and I don't want to say this in the right way. I think maybe he's been a little bit of a surprise as to really how good he is. I think you get him. Yes, he's a good player. Is he going to be that kind of player? Probably not at the very beginning. You probably didn't think he's going to be the SEC player of the year. And he's come in and he's played. He doesn't play above. He doesn't play above the rim much, and he'll have to get his shots going outside a little bit more. He won't be able to get many of his shots off as well inside, but he should be. He is a factor in the game, no doubt about it. But both teams have got to be good defensively as well as offensively. And Auburn's had the one thing that Auburn did this year. They put together their team with kids who weren't just knockouts that everybody in the world wasn't after. They liked the kids that they got on and off the court. These kids have come together and played together very well, and I think that's a critical thing that people mention. He didn't. They weren't able to get all the studs, so to speak, but they got the people that they thought they liked, and it turned out to be very good for them.
And obviously, retaining those players, I think people forget about this now. They worry about bringing in players through the transfer portal. And a lot of times people get stars in their eyes and they want those big name guys, those 4 and 5 star recruits. But look at Walter Clayton Jr. from Florida.
Cool.
I think he was a 0-star recruit before he signed at Iona with Rick Pitino. And he's the leading scorer in the NCAA tournament right now through 4 games. His finish against Texas Tech in that regional final was unreal. He looked like playing on Steph Curry's court. He looked a little bit like Steph Curry Jr. Has he surprised you, Wimp, with how
Oh my
good he's been
heavens!
and how clutch he's been?
Yeah, Patino. If I'd been Rick Patino and I left there, and that's what he did, he left. I would have tied him to the bus and put him on the front row of the bus and locked him in there. This kid can really shoot the basketball. And I think the one thing about him, Kevin, is he makes timely shots. They're down 9 with a little over 3 minutes to go in the game against Texas Tech. It doesn't look good for Florida. And brother, when he got the basketball, but besides that game, he knocked them home tough shots, and he gets a lot of credit. Florida's got a very good team. Florida's a team. I don't think this is going to sound silly to you that in the tournament thus far hasn't played as well as they've been playing. Now that doesn't mean that they won't win it all. They may win it all, but they just have not. They have not kept the basketball much. They've turned the basketball over a lot. They've just gotten by a very very, very good Connecticut team, and then turned around and won the next game. So, but they're good. They just haven't played quite as well. Now, does that balance out against Janai being hurt for Auburn? You think about Auburn has got Janai injured. I'm saying Florida hadn't played as good. It's just going to be a knockdown, drag out game.
Does either team have an edge as you're looking at it and assessing both teams going into that matchup? We mentioned Florida won in Auburn, and it was a 9-point game, but it really wasn't that close. Does either team have an edge going into this one? Both teams have depth. Both teams have size. Both teams have guards that can make shots. Who has the edge in your mind?
I think Florida has the edge on the boards. I think if you try to study the things that make you win, the defense, the long arms, the rebounding, offensively and defensively, I think Florida has a little bit better chance to run down shots that Auburn takes, and limits Auburn to one shot per possession. And I think Florida has the ability to have a lot of putbacks on their missed shots. They can rebound the basketball offensively and score. So, if I and I could be dead wrong. It's a good question, but I would say a little bit with their size, their athletic ability, their shooting ability, they might have a little not shooting ability so much, but they might have a little bit of an edge in this game. Um, Janai will be hard to defend. He'll have to score some of his points outside rather than inside. He'll go out on the perimeter some and shoot some. He's got a very good shot inside around the lane where he flips back and uses the backboard and scores. So it should be one of those games that you think it'll come down to the last shot. Of course, it won't probably, but both these teams have gone after each other. Florida, Auburn, and Alabama were both very fortunate in the way the schedule fell this year. Neither one of them had to go to Florida to play, and so that was good for them because going down to Florida did lose. If my memory holds up against a Missouri team that went in there and beat them, I think that's right. And but
It
Florida,
is.
Florida, Florida, won at Auburn. Alabama won at Auburn, and Auburn won at Alabama. So it's been a little bit of a confusing year as far as winning road games, and they've done a great job. So this should be just a terrific game. Both teams are well coached. They know what they want to do. They studied the film. Now they got to get out and play and do the thing that they need to do. You got to defend. And once you defend, you've got to limit your opponent to as much as you can to one shot under pressure. You have to defend. You have to defend the three. And when you defend the three, the people don't understand this. You have to defend the dribbler. If I take the basketball and I get by you, and somebody over in the wing has to come over and help you defend me, and I kick the basketball over to your man that you just left, and he shoots a three and makes it, then that's trouble. And I think you have to understand that you have to defend the dribbler. And a lot of the rebounds that will come off will be long rebounds because a lot of 3-point shots. The closest place to make the three is in the corner. It's a little bit closer there than it is out front. I think that's an interesting stat there. So defend
Well,
the
hey, you
dribbler.
just brought up a good point.
Okay.
Alabama in the Sweet 16 against BYU. They shoot 51 threes. They
Yeah.
make 25
They do.
threes. Both are NCAA tournament records. Obviously, BYU was the lowest rated defense in the Sweet 16
Yeah.
in the 70s in Ken Palm. So not as much of a surprise. But Alabama does not have anything close to that kind of a performance against Duke in the Elite Eight. Is that just because Duke has better players? Why are they a better defensive team? Why do they have an advantage on Houston? Is Duke the favorite going in to this Final Four? Because not only can they put the ball in the basket in a variety of ways, but they will guard you.
Well, I think if there is a favorite, it'd be Duke. I think everybody thinks their team's going to be the favorite, but I'd say probably so. The reasoning and the answer to your question is that Duke plays a switching defense. They don't worry about big on little or little on big. If they need to switch the screens, they'll switch up. They will screen. They will switch the screens. They may be guarding one guy 1 minute and 30 seconds later guarding somebody else. So that's what switching is all about. Alabama had not seen the switching defense that much, and the big guy for Duke, he clogged everything up in the middle. The middle was cleaned up, clogged up. They couldn't get to the basket on their dribble drives. Sears, who's one of the great players in Alabama, only had 5 free attempts, which was low, of course. So I
Hey,
think,
Whip, Malawach, that big man for Duke doesn't get enough credit in my
yeah,
mind. Everybody talks about Cooper Flagg and Con
yeah.
Knipple, and those are really good players, obviously. But it was almost to me as if Alabama was playing tentative. They would get in the lane and they would stop
Well,
because they knew he was lurking, and then they would turn and back it out. It just seemed like they were hesitant and concerned about getting their shots altered or blocked.
he's going to slap that thing out of there. if he possibly can on the defensive end. And on the offensive end, he's going to get the lob pass and dunk it. I mean, he's a big, tall kid and a very, very fine player. But he did both, just like you said. On the defensive end, he was very effective. You combine the switching defense with a guy in the middle that clogs it all up, and if they get a shot off, it's not a good shot. It's a contested shot inside, and then they go to the offensive end. That dribbler gets by a guard out front, and he can't go to the basket. He just throws it up in the air, and the big man just gets it and ducks it. And so he was very effective, and that's the reason that Duke was as effective as they were against Alabama.
Let's talk about Alabama. Obviously, you win 28 games,
Yeah,
you get to the Elite Eight. It's hard to say that was a disappointing season, but Nate Oates himself said it. Their goal was the Final Four. They thought they had built a team good enough to get to the Final
yeah.
Four. They didn't get there. So there's disappointment. How would you assess this Alabama season?
Well, it was a good season. They had a great season. They were one game away from going there to the Final Four, and just didn't quite get it done. But they had a good year. They played a very tough schedule, which they I think when you play that tough a schedule, that you're gonna feel comfortable about yourself when the tournaments start, because you feel like in your mind playing a lot of good people. We're not going to play anybody else in the NCAA that's any better than the teams that we've played, and so you're good mentally. And they are well. The one thing about Alabama is this: they're not as good defensively as the coaches would like for them to be. They would like to be a little bit better with defensively, and they turn the ball over at times, too many times. But I think Alabama, with their offensive boards, put it back, shooting the threes, getting the fast break, getting the lob passes, all those four offensive things can overcome the mistakes they make on defense. I mean, they're that good offensively. They're hard to guard in an offensive basis. They just are. Sears does a good job. All those kids do a good job, but they're shooting the ball in the break. They're shooting the ball in the lob pass. They're shooting the cotton picking ball in the corner. They're doing it all. And most of the time, all of that offense overcomes what they lack defensively, and at times they do turn the ball over a little bit more than the coaches like for them to.
How much do you, if at all, visit occasionally with Nate Oates or his assistants and just talk basketball?
Oh,
Maybe in the off season, just
I haven't much at all. They're always busy, and I've had some things where I've been busy myself, and I really haven't visited. The one thing I'm very, very careful about. You're on our radio show, and you do a good job on it. I'm very careful. Try to be very careful about what I say when I'm on the radio about Alabama, because people, will think I got to a lot of Final Six teams and couldn't get by them, and didn't
six to
get
be
by 'em.
exact.
Yeah, six of them didn't
Six
get by
Sweet
'em. That's
16s, which
pretty
is
bad.
obviously
Yeah,
still an Alabama record.
and so anyway, I don't. I see them, I shake hands with them, and I kind of I just feel like that I don't want people thinking I'm over there trying to say anything really. They know how to coach their team. They do a good job of coaching it. They coach it different. Basketball is different than it was. We didn't have the 3-point shots that when I first started that they do now, and we were probably better defensively, but it is what it is. And I think sometimes the only thing that bothers me about all of it is that when you've had it, you keep up with it because you were a writer and did a good job. But people seem to forget that in the past years, uh, uh, Florida has been good. Duke has been good. We played Norm Sloan in the finals of the SEC tournament in Knoxville and beat them there. Auburn, Georgia. I mean Auburn, Florida. Um, Houston's always been pretty good. Um, you seem to forget that, but you like to compare, and so social media this day and time, is quite different than it was when I was coaching. We got some. I'm kind of glad of it because I'd gotten busted more for getting to the final 16, not getting by that game. But uh, the teams, the players are were just as good in my day as they are now. The teams were just as difficult because we played an 18 game round robin schedule, and guess what? We kept our players. This day and time, you don't always keep your players. Our players that went with us, signed with us, excuse me, played with us every year. And so the more they played, when they got to be juniors and seniors, the better they got. So I hear people say basketball's better. It's not. We had around. We went to Kentucky every year. This day and time, you play three teams twice. Last year before last, you played five teams twice. Well, when you play five teams twice, that's 10 of your 18 games. If you're fortunate enough to hit, a couple of weak teams, you might pick up your four wins. So I certainly want to give it. I want to give the SEC a lot of credit, no doubt about that. But also, uh, basketball back in the days in the '80s was darn good.
Well, let's look at your record, Wimp, and that's something that bothers me too because I was fortunate. Brendan, if you would pop up Wimp's just a partial list of his accomplishments at Alabama, and it's a long list. So I picked out a few. I've picked out a few things that really stood out. But one of the things that bothers me is, like I said, I was fortunate. I started working in this business in the '80s when you were at Alabama. Sonny Smith was at Auburn.
Yeah,
Durham was at Georgia. Dale Brown was at LSU. Kentucky had Eddie Sutton. They had Joe B. Hall before that. You know, and those were some of the best players, the Charles Barkleys, the Chuck Persons, the Buck Johnsons, the Enos Watleys that you had. Um, some of the best players that we've ever seen in the SEC. But because we're such a microwave society, everybody's about what's happening now. You would think that the SEC basketball just started
yeah,
in the last couple of years because they got 14 teams in the tournament. They got 7 to the Sweet 16. They got 4 to the Elite 8, and they got 2 to the Final 4, which is all great. But you just hit on something. It was different when you had to play everybody home and away in the
yeah.
league.
Well, and the other factor too, and I'm not saying this ugly at all, but just say factual. Uh, we recruited our players. We didn't buy them. You can buy players now, and that's fine. If you've got the money, if you've got the budget, and your athletic director will help you with that, then you can buy you a basketball team. In our day and time, I know they used to say that people cheated behind the scenes, and nothing to the extent of maybe a Mother's Day card to a prospect's mother or something, but it just simply was quite different. So when you ended up uh, trying to have a kind of basketball team with players that you recruited, and you mentioned all those things, we had a situation where we were knocked some because we had Gene Bartow come into UAB, and they were very good, and we didn't play them, and that made it very controversial, actually, for you, and for the other writers. It made it very good because it all stink stirred,
We had
and
some
so
spirited
yeah,
conversations on
yeah,
that
sure,
subject
sure,
back in the day.
and sure because y'all would like to play, play those games, but the SEC was very good back then. Kentucky has won the most games down through the years in the SEC, and I think Alabama's second in number total of wins. I think Tennessee right in there close, but Alabama is had good basketball for a number of years. Johnny D was one of the great coaches. Um, they put some things in the Paul Bryant Museum about myself and Nate Oates and CM. And I called the lady the other day and I said, Johnny D needs to be in there. Johnny D had a team that went to Montgomery, first team ever to score 100 points against Kentucky and beat them, and sort of got basketball really going back in when we were we were getting minority kids to play for us. So
Yeah, that was back in the
always been
50s. The
good.
Rocket,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Rocket 8,
Yeah, that's
the team
all
was
you.
known as.
Yeah, all you people that were listening to listen to this show with just a thought in your mama's mind. You weren't your mama may not have been born.
uh, I got to ask you though, since we're talking about that, I have made the point, and I have been emphasizing it. I've been tweeting it throughout the NCAA tournament. I know you've seen it. How many NCAA tournament wins that you had, which is 12? How many Nate Oates has had, and he got to 11, and now Bruce Pearl has gotten to 11. And yet, after the Sweet 16 win over BYU, Alabama's official Twitter account put out a congratulatory tweet to Nate Oates on winning his 11th NCAA tournament game, a new school record. Well, it's not a school record except for the fact the NCAA vacated your 2 wins in 1987. Does that bother you?
Well, it shouldn't have. They shouldn't have. There's no reason to have
You
done
know the
that.
story better than anybody.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't. I didn't even know that happened. Um, I think the SID. I don't know if the athletic director told them to do that or not. I have no idea,
I
but
think the NCAA told,
yeah,
and you could see it. It's weird. It's in different media guides where they will include those victories,
yeah,
but they will put an asterisk and they'll
yeah.
explain the NCAA vacated
Well,
those victories in
yeah,
that postseason only because a couple of guys, maybe did sign something with an agent or one of those
yeah.
napkin type deals. But to me, why are we still denying that those
Well,
games
yeah,
happened, that those
I
wins didn't occur?
yeah, it's okay. I be somewhere along the line, these guys that you mentioned are going to break all of my records. There's no doubt about that because they're going be continued to coach, I guess, and my days are over. So um, it is what it is. We had good teams and we played hard. We got in the final game, several times, and so anyway, it is what it is. And what you if you you'll let that bug you if you're not careful. And I try to just turn the page and go on.
Are you surprised, though, Wimp, that the SEC has done what it's done this year? 14 teams in the tournament, shattering the record by 3 of the Big East set back in 2011. As I said, 7 getting to the Sweet 16, 4 to the Elite 8, now 2 to the Final 4.
I am, and also along with that, uh, I, we have changed things. So basketball changes, and this is not going to be favorable with everybody, but um, we've got the leagues are different. The ACC was top to bottom was very very tough when I was coaching. This year, you couldn't find anybody but Duke, maybe North Carolina at times. Big controversy about that, but the ACC was not as good. Um, and I think the other teams, when you go to the western part of the United States, you look up and all of a sudden, Southern Cal's in the Big Ten, UCLA's in the Big Ten. Oh, lo and behold, Oregon's in the Big Ten. So to me, the people, although Alabama played a very good schedule, the people are surrounding uh, uh, the SEC. Maybe we're not quite as good as they have when we were coaching. So um, does it surprise you that many got in? Yes, it does.
Wimp,
Did
let's
they?
look at your record, and we have a graphic up on the screen. Most wins in school history, 267.
That's soon to be over with.
6 SEC, not for a while, 6 SEC championships, 5 in the tournament, 1 the regular season, 10 NCAA tournaments in 12 years, 6 Sweet 16s, 12 NCAA tournament victories. You still, to this day, are in first place in the SEC and getting to the SEC tournament finals, getting to the semifinals, second in SEC tournament championships, second in SEC tournament victories behind Billy Donovan at Florida. And he was in ninth, I should add, not to put an asterisk on it, but Billy coached in 19 SEC tournaments. You coached in 12. and he only has a couple more victories. What are you proudest
I
of your
don't
time
know.
at Alabama?
I think just the overall thing. I don't know that any one particular thing that sticks out too much. You know, here's the difference. When we were getting people, and I won't argue this. There are a lot of people who say the round robin is more important than winning the tournament. Well, the round robin is not like the round robin when we were there. When we were there, it was a round robin. You played Florida twice, you played Georgia twice, you played everybody twice. This day, that's changed. It's somewhat changed a little bit, so that makes it a little bit different.
It
When we were doing it, here's what the SEC said: the champion of the SEC is the one that wins the tournament. Now, is that fair? I don't know if it was or not. I thought it was because we won it a lot. But that's what they said. The champion of the SEC gets the championship ring, and my players thought that was important. So when we got ready to play in the SEC tournament, we use those things. If you want to be the champions of the SEC, regardless of what anybody says, the team that wins this tournament will be the champion, and you'll get the ring. And so that's what happened, and we were able to do that. As I already said, we got two teams going against each other Saturday. That one won the SEC tournament, and one won the round robin. So uh, I, I can see arguments on both sides. The only problem is SEC said and, that the winner of the SEC tournament was considered the SEC champion.
I've got to ask you, and you alluded to it earlier, in that you are careful in talking about Alabama basketball
I am.
on your radio show, and we should tell people that on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa, Wimp and his son Barry have a daily morning radio show. I'm fortunate they allow me to come on and banter with them every Tuesday morning. Sometimes we disagree. That makes it more fun.
Yeah, it does.
And your approach is different than Pat Dye's approach. He was quite critical at times of Auburn football when he was a retired Auburn football coach, and he would go on radio shows occasionally, and he would say some critical things because he wasn't happy with the state of the program at different times. One thing that many people say to me, especially at the Birmingham Tip-Off Club, is, why does Wimp always want to talk about football? He seems like he wants to talk about football more than he does about basketball when you have me on as a guest. What do you say to that?
I don't know. I don't even know. I think most of the time it's during football season. The only thing that bothers me about the whole thing is you talked about the things that I had done, and I don't want. I never got ever even invited to speak to the Tip-Off Club. Here I am, a guy who won all those games.
Hold on.
And the
Are you
Tip-Off
serious?
Club never invited me to come. No.
Are you serious?
Never invited.
That is an egregious oversight.
I was the winningest coach at Alabama for a while. I won't be long. I won all those tournament games. It's a big deal. Yet I've never had it, and I live in Birmingham, but was never invited.
Well, I'm gonna since I've gotten involved in the club, I'm gonna see what I can do to change that.
No,
next
I don't
season.
really want. It's not a big deal to me, but it's kind of funny that somebody would say that I talk football, and yet I wasn't even invited to the Tip-Off Club.
You do like to talk football, though. Before we let you go, and we got to wrap it up here in a few minutes. What are your thoughts? Well, we talked on your show today about Greg Burns saying Alabama is not flush with cash. They are not going to be able to add as many scholarships as the NCAA moves to roster limits, in which you can use those scholarships up to the roster limit, 105 for football, although the SEC is going to stay at 85 for this coming season. But that was interesting what Greg Burns said. Yeah. And how confident are you right now about the state of Alabama football? Are we going to see an uptick this year? Is that going to depend on the quarterback position? Are you concerned about the long-term future of Kalen DeBoer, considering he's trying to match up to Nick Saban?
Yeah, I think he's going to do fine. You're never going to be as satisfied with the way Nick was and Coach Bryant was. I think he's going to do fine. I think the athletic director's done a good job. I think it costs a lot more money to run a program, swimming program or a rowing program or whatever kind of program you're trying to row than people realize. It's cost a lot of money to do that, and I think people don't recognize that, and that's that's the big thing. Um, the talk or the speech or the information that you give your coach about his sport and to tell him that you're going to cut back is a very, very uncomfortable speech. As I listened to him talk the other day, he said, we had some, I forget what adjectives he used, but some things said that, we're cutting back on this or cutting back on that. Um, that's an uncomfortable thing to say because you're trying to build a program and I forget how much money per player that it costs you to have somebody on scholarship. It's a lot of money. So
It's six
uh,
figures. Yeah, I don't
yeah, it
remember the
is.
exact figure, but
Yeah,
it is six figures
yeah.
that they're spending now just on all the ancillary, all the benefits they provide, the training, the facilities, the nutrition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, yeah. I just think it's that's it's quite different, and things are different as you go back and look at things that happened in the past, and everything's a little bit different, and we've lawyered up a lot. NCAA is lawyered up, and when you lawyer up, it makes it very difficult to get things in front of the House in Washington. And I don't know if we'll ever get it the way we want it. But if when I used to hand out uh, $15 a month for laundry money, and by the way, we broke that down to $7.50 every 2 weeks. $7.50 every 2 weeks, and the line looked like he was going to Burger King. Just a minute, the line was so long. They all
You
wanted
can't
just
get a
that.
meal at
No,
Burger King for
right.
that today.
No, so they stood in line for $7.50, and if Coach Bryant, Johnny Vaught, those people were to wake up and come back and talk about in the millions, they would they would they couldn't handle it, and they wouldn't know how to handle it. And I tell you something, a lot of the coaches are not handling it very well themselves. They're disgusted with it, and I think the sad part about all of this to me is we quit recruiting high school kids, and I think that's bad. And we just high school kids are forgotten right now, and I think that's bad.
You are right about that. Well, Wimp Sanderson, I could talk to you all day long about football, about basketball, about life in general. Thanks so much
Okay.
for joining me on the podcast. I always enjoy our Tuesday conversations.
Yeah,
You have a great day.
yeah, I appreciate y'all letting me be on because as most of y'all, both of you know, I don't know exactly how to do much in this computer world, so I'm lucky to have gotten on and gotten with it. Thanks a
You
lot,
made
guys.
you made it work. You
I
made it work.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Wimp.
Thanks.
Have a
Okay,
great
thank
day.
you.
All right, I got to before we get out of here, I got to share this one Wimp story. He obviously had a huge rivalry, a huge competition, especially in recruiting with Gene Bartow when Gene started the UAB program. And they were not friends. They were not colleagues. They never played each other while Wimp was there. The year after Wimp left, the NIT matched up UAB and Alabama for the first time and still the last time back in 1993, and UAB won the game in Coleman Coliseum in Tuscaloosa. They printed up bumper stickers still see around town in Birmingham that say UAB 1, UAT 0. But I had gotten into a conflict with Gene Bartow about something. He didn't like something I had written. He got mad at me. He barred me from going in the locker room. He he basically went off on a rant and was very displeased with me. Well, at the time, I would cover UAB. I'd cover Auburn. I'd cover Alabama, SEC. I covered everybody. So The next week, I'm in Tuscaloosa. I'm doing a story on Alabama basketball, and I thought Wimp would get a kick out of this story about Gene Bartow getting in my face and screaming at me after a game at DePaul. So I tell Wimp this story, and he says, and what the worst part of it all was that Gene Bartow called me an Alabama fan. He said, you come on these road trips just to tear my program down. You are nothing but an Alabama fan. Now, Alabama fans have never accused me of that, just as Auburn fans have never accused me of being an Auburn fan. It's usually the other way around. So I couldn't wait to tell Wimp this story, and I shared that anecdote with him, and he said, Alabama fan? He said, I know you're no Alabama fan, some of the crap you write about us. And then he paused for a second and said, now listen, don't you go writing something bad about me to make yourself look better with him. That's how competitive and ferocious Wimp Sanderson was in coaching his basketball team every single day. And he did it better than anyone has ever done it in the state of Alabama. Those records will be broken someday by Nate Oates and or Bruce Pearl, but Wimp Sanderson was one of a kind, and it was great to have a conversation with him. All right, we got to get out of here. That's it for Scarborough Knows today as we get ready, get closer and closer to the Final Four. Will it be Florida? Will it be Auburn? Bring home that big ring. Find it this weekend. Have a great day, everybody.